As seen in a previous lesson, styles that are added to a very specific element like this H2 inside of a web page creates a highly specific style that applies to only that one element, even if there are elements in the page of the same type. Like in this example from our past video, we've got an H2 here, an H2 here, and an H2 here, yet the styling is only impacting this single H2 element. The way we go about fixing that so that we can have styles that are specific specific to a group of elements or generic to an entire set of elements is by using internal CSS sheets or internal CSS styles. And how we go about that is, let's get to our code really quick. All right, so we're back on the index page of this demo website that we've been building. We've got our H2 with a very specific style right here. But we want to be able to style not just the one H2. We want all H2s to look the same. And so what we're going to do is, to accomplish that, we are going to add a style attribute to the head of our HTML document. And if you recall, the head of an HTML document provides metadata for the document itself, like the title, and then some meta attributes for search engines and all kinds of stuff, as well as the ability to import style sheets, import JavaScripts, or place an actual internal style sheet into the page that is specific to the page. Now, that's one thing I want to point out, is that when we use an internal style sheet inside of an HTML page using the style tag inside of the head of the page document, or the document's head, we are creating a style that is specific to just this HTML document, meaning that as soon as we add a style to this document, if we go to the About page, any H2s that are in here, like this one, will not be affected. And we'll see that here in a second. And then in a future video, we'll see how to fix that in order to have a style sheet or an external style sheet that can be applied to all pages within our website. So let's start with just an internal CSS right here. And like we were doing in the last video, we are styling H2s. So we want all of our H2s to look a certain way. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select just H2s. And with those H2s, we want to make sure that we are styling them the same. And we used color and background color. So let's go ahead and let's set the color for this. And let's use something different than we used on the individual element. And let's use, what would be a good color for our, let's go with chocolate. And then we also used background color. So let's do background color. And let's set it not to black like we had the other one. Let's do some kind of like light gray. All right, so let's run through this really quick to make sure that we understand what just happened here. Actually, let's pull up, see if we can't get both styles in the same page. So let's see, let's collapse that. Let's collapse that. I'm going to collapse this one as well. Oh, it won't let me collapse that. Oh, that one's already collapsed. Okay, so it looks like we can see both of them on the page. All right, so when we were doing an inline style, we talked about the key value pairs being separated by a colon with the key on this side and the value on this side, and then key value pairs being separated by the semicolon, and then moving on with our styles. When we do an internal style sheet and we select a very specific element type, we're following the exact same pattern. It's just because we are selecting a type, we have to wrap it in curly braces in order to separate the code that we are using for this particular H2 and then any styles that we add below for other elements. We'll see how that works in a minute. Now we are still using the exact same key value pair syntax where we have the key, the value, separated by a colon with a semicolon terminating that statement. The cool thing about styles with an internal style is that we can actually separate them line by line rather than going in a straight line, which makes it a lot more readable as well. So let's see what we just did to our page. Let's go back to our browser, and we'll see that the getting started is different than the other two. And you know what? That orange or brown or whatever it is on that gray is really hard to read. So let's fix that. Let's change it from chocolate. Let's change it to some other color that's easier to read on that gray. Let's go with this dark slate gray. Let's see what happens. All right, that's easier to read. Okay, now we went ahead and we added a CSS selector that just selects H2 elements and then applies this format or this look and feel to those elements. And when we did the video about inline styles, I informed everyone that inline styles have a higher specificity. In other words, they override or have more power than a generic style. So this style right here is more generic than the style here. And that is because we are selecting all H2s generically. In other words, this style says, go find me all H2s in the page and then style them this way. Whereas this one says, after all generic styles have been applied, then apply this style. And in this case, because of the way CSS styles are applied, this one has higher priority or more power or more specificity than this rule does. So this rule is overridden by this rule. So if we go back to our browser and we select one of these elements and we look at the style sheet over here, we see that we still get the generic styles from the browser, and then we get the we get the generic H2 from the inline, and then these ones don't have any element specific styles, so it's empty. And here we begin to see more the cascading effect of CSS or the inheritance of CSS. In this case, we'll notice that the generic H2 style from the browser does not actually contain the color or the background color attributes. They are not here. So we see that these just get added to this set, or they get combined or cascaded in order to give us this look and feel right here. Now, when we have a element specific style sheet, so we go to this one right here, we can see that we still get the generic browser styles with all of its generic stuff. And again, it doesn't have color or background color as part of it. Then we get the internal styles, or that generic one that we set for these ones over here. And then we get the inline styles, or the styles that are set directly on that element. And what's cool is you can actually see that as the styles get applied in that kind of reverse order, we see these rules right here, these properties, being overridden by the values of these properties, because we are asking for the style sheet to apply changes to these properties in CSS. So this background color and this color were applied directly after all of these styles were applied. Now, the inline style that was applied directly to the element, it was applied after this one was applied. Therefore, because it is changing or resetting the color to red, our dark slate gray is overridden with red, and that's why we see the line through it. Same thing with the background color. Originally it was gray, but we have overridden it with that element-specific style due to the inline style, and now it is black. And that is why we are seeing a completely different style between these two elements. This is where the bugs can happen when web developers use inline styles. And that is because the majority of the time we are trying to create more generic CSS styles that are not inside the HTML structure, and that is the reason why we use or can use these internal styles like we used right here. Now again, these internal styles are specific only to H2 elements inside of this page, which happens to be the index.html, and this inline style is specific only to this one H2 element on which that style attribute was invoked. So if we go back to our website, and now we go to our About Us page, we will see that any H2s that we have in here, like this one right here, have not been affected whatsoever. No style changes have been made. They have not been impacted at all by that internal style. And that is because that style is internal to this one HTML page. Next, we are going to learn about how to overcome that so that we can have styles that are generic to an entire website, which means they can be applied to every single page in the website.